Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. Sensex and Nifty snap a 6-day losing streak. Sensex gains nearly 600 points. Nifty reclaims 25,000. Mid-caps outperform. China's stock market rally loses steam. Country's top economic planner stops short of announcing immediate stimulus measures to boost consumption. World Bank also slashes China's GDP forecast. Israeli strikes killed 25 people, including women and children, in Gaza. As Palestinians mark 1 year of the war, Hamas launches a barrage of missiles at Tel Aviv. Israel also expands the ground offensive in Lebanon. Crude oil prices retreat after the recent surge. BJP retains Haryana and secures a historic third term, defying exit poll predictions. Congress party says the results are not acceptable and alleges serious issues with the counting process. Omar Abdullah set to return as Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. The National Conference and Congress Alliance set to form the next government. BJP sweeps Jammu region but fails to open its account in the valley. The PDP gets decimated. Ola Electric receives a notice from the Central Consumer Protection Authority over rising complaints from consumers. Company promises to respond within 15 days. Says the notice will have no impact on financial, operational or other business activities. Asian Paints eyes a potential acquisition of Akzo Nobel assets. CEO Amit Singhal says the company is interested in acquiring parts of the business. If it becomes available, that's an exclusive. Weight loss drugs are taking off in India even as the overall market size remains less than 600 crores. The sale of drugs is growing at a compounded annual rate of 37% in the last 5 years. With less than 30 days to go for the US presidential elections, Kamala Harris leads Donald Trump by 46 to 43%, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. Harris was leading by 6 percentage points in September. Professors John Hopfield and Hopfield Hinton win the Nobel Prize in Physics. Their discoveries and inventions formed the building blocks of machine learning, contributing to facial recognition technology and language translation. Let's start with the market action. The bulls clawed back on Dalal Street to snap a 6-day losing streak. Sensex gained nearly 600 points and the Nifty moved back above the 25,000 mark, gaining over 200 points. 8 lakh crore rupees in market capitalization was added in trade today. Mid-caps outperformed the blue chips, with the index gaining over 2%. The rally in Chinese stocks slowed down today after the country's top economic planner provided few details on further stimulus measures. China's benchmark index soared over 10% after 7 days of holiday, but closed with gains of 5% following the announcement. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's Hang Seng clocked its heaviest losses since 2008. The country's National Development and Reform Commission announced early use of bond money on projects. This disappointed the market, which expected stimulus measures to boost consumption. Meanwhile, the World Bank has warned that China's economic growth is expected to decline further in 2025, despite a temporary boost from the recent stimulus measures. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Morgan Stanley's Chetan Iyer said that he remains cautious on China. Listen in.
We have already cut down our China growth and we have brought it down to 4.6% versus the government target of 5%. And, if there were to be aggressive policy actions taken, we would have had to lift our growth estimates. Our equity strategy team has, put out a note today morning and they've still maintained underweight on China. And it's sort of similar to the view that I mentioned earlier that, we will need to see more evidence of fiscal expansion targeted towards consumption.
Tensions continue to flare in West Asia. Israel has expanded its ground offensive in Lebanon and is conducting targeted operations in the southwestern part of the country. Until now, Israel's military offensive had been limited to the eastern border of Lebanon. The fresh strikes by Israel followed an intensive wave of air raids which marked 1 year of the war in Gaza. The raids involving 100 aircraft targeted about 120 sites in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Israeli military reported that Hezbollah launched 190 rockets at Tel Aviv on Monday. Israeli strikes killed at least 25 people, including women and children, in Gaza as Palestinians marked 1 year of the war. The Israel military called for an evacuation in northern Gaza as part of a fresh military operation. Israeli tanks make their way into Jabalia refugee camps, with the military dropping leaflets saying, "We are in a new phase of war." Meanwhile, Hamas launched a barrage of missiles at Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, Iran is hoping that countries globally will pursue Israel for de-escalation in the region. In a conversation with me, Iranian ambassador to India said that Iran's attacks are a mere retaliation to violation of Iranian sovereignty.
We hope that all countries who have influence on Israel will do their best to convince it to move toward de-escalation, since what we have done was retaliation to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in the Tehran, capital of Iran. So the first, it was a retaliation to the violation of Iranian sovereignty. So if Israel will do anything again, we will be obliged to retaliate, and we will enter a new circle of tension.
Has hit a major Ukrainian airbase with a hypersonic missile. Ukraine has said that there were no civilian casualties and no damage to critical infrastructure. Kyiv has said that Russian missiles also struck 2 vessels in the Black Sea grain export hub in Ukraine's southern port of Odessa. This is the second such attack in many days. This comes as Russian forces entered the outskirts of a key frontline city in the eastern part of the country. Crude oil prices have retreated after the recent surge. Brent continues to hover around the $80 mark. Union Petroleum Minister Hardeep Puri said there is no reason for India to panic over the oil prices.
There is no panic, point one. I keep reiterating that there is more than enough oil available in the world. You understand? What happens when the global turbulence takes place? We all, especially India, we call for restraint, we call for peace, we call for dialogue. That's one process. But if some things happen which is outside anybody's control, then sometimes because of diversion, freight rates go up, insurance goes up. These are all manageable things.
The RBI Monetary Policy Committee is likely to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 10th consecutive time, where it announces its decision tomorrow. A CNBC TV 18 poll showed that the street is expecting no change in rates. Ritu Singh is here with what we can expect.
Steep rate cuts by major central banks, rising geopolitical tensions and a revamped MPC. It is going to be an interesting backdrop to this policy meeting. Now, we first asked respondents if the recent rate cuts by the US Fed in China are going to influence the MPC's decision, and a solid 80% said no, expecting the RBI to stay focused on domestic factors. As for the RBI governor's tone, 40% are expecting a dovish tilt, but the majority, 60%, still says the tone will be absolutely even, with no clear signal of a policy pivot just yet. What also makes this particular policy more exciting is that it is probably the first meeting of the MPC this year where at least a part of the financial markets are expecting a change in stance, and a very small number even a rate cut. Now, half the respondents are expecting the MPC to shift the stance to neutral in October, while 30% expect it to be retained at withdrawal of accommodation. As for the timing of the stance change, while 50% say it will happen now, the rest of them are forecasting a shift only by December or perhaps even later. On rate cuts, 10% are expecting a 25 basis point cut this time around, but the larger majority sees the status quo because they say the MPC will remain cautious because of food inflation risks. Now, most economists believe the window for a rate cut will open only by December or perhaps even later. On the total quantum of cuts in this entire cycle, 50% see room for a 50 basis point cut, while the remainder are divided between 60 to 100 basis points. Inflation is expected to dominate the governor's address, with 80% saying that the CPI forecast is likely to be left unchanged at 4.5%, although 20% do foresee a slight cut as inflation in the second quarter is expected to marginally undershoot RBI's own estimate. On growth, the economists are pretty split. Half are expecting the forecast to be left unchanged at 7.2%, while the rest expect a downward revision pointing to weaker momentum in the key economic indicators. And lastly, this is the debut meeting for the 3 new recently appointed external MPC members, Professor Ram Singh, Saugata Bhattacharya and Dr. Nagesh Kumar, and 40% of our respondents believe that the new members are more likely to lean towards maintaining status quo, although some are of the view that there could be one dissenting vote, which should come from Saugata Bhattacharya, citing his recent paper in August making a case for a rate cut. But of course, we'll have to see how the views have evolved since then.
The big national story now. The BJP has secured a historic third consecutive term in Haryana. The BJP has won a clear majority in the 90-member assembly, defying exit polls which pointed to a Congress victory. It has also managed to buck the anti-incumbency wave after protests by farmers and wrestlers. The results come as a shock to the Congress party, which is not accepting the mandate. The party is alleging serious violations in the counting process. Listen in.
आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी, ये पूरा का पूरा श्रेय मैं आदरणीय मोदी जी को देता हूं। उनके आशीर्वाद से, उनकी गाइडलाइन के अंदर, उनकी जो नीतियां हैं, उन नीतियों के ऊपर हरियाणा के लोगों ने मोहर लगाई है। मैं हरियाणा की जनता का जहां दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूं, उनको प्रणाम करता हूं।
जनता ने कांग्रेस की बात को नकारा, भारतीय जनता पार्टी की बात को उन्होंने सराहा, स्वीकार किया और मैं समझता हूं कि एक जनता ने एक ऐसा संदेश दिया है कि मोदी जी के जो सरकार की नीतियां हैं, मोदी जी की जो उपलब्धियां हैं, जो हमारा काम करने का तरीका है, कार्यपद्धति का, वो जनता के ऊपर असर कर रहा था और जनता ने उसका प्रत्युत्तर में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की हरियाणा में तीसरी बार सरकार बनाई है।
तंत्र का कितना रोल है इसकी जांच करेंगे हम, क्योंकि बहुत सारी सीटें थोड़ी थोड़ी वोटों से आ रहे हैं, थोड़ी वोटों से आ रहे हैं और कई जगह से शिकायतें भी मिली हैं। कहीं बैटरी की शिकायत मिली है, कोई मिली है, और जिस प्रकार से लोडिंग हुई है, मतलब डिले वो हुई है, उसके हिसाब से भी है। लेकिन नहीं आओ, वो हमारे जो है AICC वाले इलेक्शन कमीशन मिलेंगे, सारी बात कहेंगे, लेकिन इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं, आश्चर्यचकित हुई।
Results in Haryana are totally unexpected, completely surprising and counterintuitive. It goes against ground reality. We will bring it to the notice of the Election Commission. And what we have seen today in Haryana is, I think, a victory for manipulation.
ये हर उस लड़की की, हर उस महिला की लड़ाई है जो संघर्ष के रास्ते को हमेशा चुनती है। आज संघर्ष की जीत हुई है, सच्चाई की जीत हुई है और मैं चाहती हूँ कि हमारे लोगों ने जो प्यार प्रेम दिया है, जो इस देश ने मेरे को प्यार प्रेम दिया है, उसको मैं हमेशा बना के रखूँ, उनके विश्वास को हमेशा बना के रखूँ।
In Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah is all set to return as the Chief Minister of the Union Territory. The alliance between National Conference and the Congress has won more than half the seats in the 90-member assembly. The PDP led by Mehbooba Mufti has been decimated and the former Chief Minister said the party will play the role of a constructive opposition. The BJP managed to sweep the Jammu region but could not open its account in the valley. The Aam Aadmi Party won a seat in Kashmir, its first in the Union Territory. The patriarch of the National Conference, Farooq Abdullah, has said his son Omar Abdullah will return as Chief Minister.
मुझे जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों की खिदमत करने का दोबारा एक मौका जो है हासिल हुआ है। यहाँ बहुत सी ऐसी तंजीमें खड़ी की गई जिनका मकसद था नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस को ख़त्म करना, लेकिन अल्लाह का फजल है कि जो हमें ख़त्म करने के लिए आए थे मैदान में, वो खुद ही मतलब उनका कोई नामो निशान नहीं रहा।
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जम्मू कश्मीर ने एक बहुत बड़ा मैसेज दिया है। आप इस देश के किसी भी राज्य की अस्मिता के साथ खिलवाड़ नहीं कर सकते हैं। आप इस देश के किसी भी राज्य को घटाकर यूनियन टेरिटरी नहीं बना सकते हैं। जम्मू कश्मीर को यह काबिले बर्दाश्त नहीं था। बीजेपी ना सिर्फ कश्मीर में बल्कि जम्मू में भी हार रही है।
मुझे इस बात की खुशी है कि जिस तरह से लोगों ने वोट किया एक स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट के लिए, तो जो इसमें गड़बड़ करने का कोई चांस नहीं अब, क्योंकि लगता था कि अगर मैंडेट कुछ मिक्स्ड होगा, अगर एक तरफा मैंडेट नहीं होगा तो फिर उसमें बहुत सी शरारतें हो सकती थी, बहुत सारी उथल पुथल हो सकती थी और कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ के जो लोगों ने मैंडेट दिया है उसको डिफीट करने की बात हो सकती थी।
And Tata Motors' own Jaguar Land Rover reported a 3% year-on-year decline in retail sales in the second quarter of the fiscal. Retail sales for the first 6 months of the financial year were up 3% year-on-year. The company said that production in the quarter was 7% lower owing to disruptions in aluminium supply. Tata Motors maintained that wholesale volumes will pick up strongly in the second half of the financial year. Ola Electric has received a notice from the Central Consumer Protection Authority over rising complaints from consumers. The company is facing accusations of deficiency in service, particularly regarding delays and issues with refunds. The CCPA has granted Ola Electric 15 days to respond to the notice and submit the required documents. Ola Electric has confirmed that it will comply with the authority's request within the given time frame. Electric two-wheeler sales saw a 40% growth year-on-year and 1.7% growth month-on-month in September. The big player, Ola Electric, saw a 30% growth in sales on a yearly basis, but the month-on-month sales continued to decline, and the month of September it declined 10% amid the rising customer complaints. Bajaj Auto's Chetak saw a 15% rise in sales in September, while TVS Electric registered a 3% growth. Ather Energy, which is the fourth largest electric two-wheeler maker in the country in terms of market share, saw sales rising 17% month-on-month. Moving on, Asian Paints will be interested in parts of the Akzo Nobel's business if it's on the block. That's the word coming in from company's MD and CEO Amit Singhal. Speaking on the sidelines of the jury for the 20th edition of the India Business Leader Awards, Singhal also explained why the company expects a better third quarter.
It's too early to say in terms of what model are they looking, in terms of looking at whether they're looking at anything which is a joint venture or is a divestment. We are not very clear, but definitely I think there are certain parts of the business which are very interesting in terms of what is there. And as we see it, I think in a large industry with some of the smaller players, there is bound to be some consolidation which is going to happen, which is the trend what we are seeing.
So you would be interested?
Definitely some parts of it we might be interested, depending on in terms of the overall environment, given the fact that we have a large share. In terms of what we are permitted, we don't know really in terms of it, but I think it depends on the contours of the real divestment in terms of how it takes place.
Market regulator SEBI has given its green light to Indian Securities Depository NSDL for its IPO. The long-awaited public issue is expected to be a complete offer for sale and will likely see NSE, IDBI Bank, HDFC and other shareholders pair stake. NSDL had filed its DRHP in July 2023. However, SEBI had placed the DRHP in abeyance in August last year. NSDL will be the second Indian depository to list after CDSL, listed in 2017. LIC is likely to have reduced first-year commissions and bonus following the implementation of higher surrender values for its policies, sources tell CNBC TV 18. Sources have also said that insurers are expected to reduce first-year commission on its policies to 20% from 25%. We learn from sources that the company is also likely to reduce bonus to 8% to 10%. This means that the total first-year commission is likely to have decreased from 35% to 28%. And staying with the economy and the manufacturing sector, a section of Samsung employees on strike at the company's Chennai plant have decided to return to work after nearly a month of protests. This after the South Korean firm reached an agreement with employees to hike wages by 5,000 rupees per month from this month to March next year. A large section of workers backed by the Centre of Indian Trade Unions continue to be on the strike. The workers claim that their key demand, which was a recognition of the union, Samsung India workers, has not been accepted. Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Jun Young-Yoon has issued a rare apology after the company reported a disappointing profit guidance for the third quarter. On the back of rising competition from AI chips, the South Korean tech giant said operating profit for the quarter is estimated at $6.8 billion. Though the number marks a 270% surge from last year's figure, it is lower than market expectations. On that note, coming up on India Business Hour, weight loss drugs are taking off in India, even as the overall market size remains less than 600 crore rupees. Details in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram and JioCinema. Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris's lead over Republican Donald Trump has narrowed to 3 percentage points, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll. The 4-day poll completed yesterday showed Trump was the preferred candidate for a range of economic issues. Remember, Trump trailed Harris by 6 points in last month's poll. Scientists John Hopfield and Geoffrey Hinton have won the Nobel Prize in Physics for their work in the field of machine learning. Hopfield and Hinton were honored for building artificial neural networks that store and retrieve memories like the human brain. The networks also learn from information fed into them. Online gaming platform Roblox's shares opened with losses of 7% after Hindenburg Research accused the company of lying about the number of users on its platform. The short seller's report alleges that Roblox has inflated the metric of users by 25 to 42% and engagement hours by more than 100%. Hindenburg's research also alleges that the platform is compromising the online safety of children in order to report growth to investors. And shifting focus to a CNBC TV 18 special, weight loss drugs have taken the world by storm, with the industry estimated to grow around $100 billion by the end of the decade. How big is the Indian market, which is known as the diabetes capital of the world? Ekta Batra explains.
Now, the entire market has grown from around 160 crores in August 2020 to over 560 crores as of August 2024. Though weight loss drugs have been around in the Indian market since almost 3 decades ago, with the molecule Orlistat launched all the way back in 1996, majority of the growth has been since 2022 when semaglutide was introduced in the market, with the market growing 46% in August 2022 over August 2021, followed by a 67% growth in 2023 and a 49% growth just in the past 1 year odd. So how has semaglutide led the growth and how have other drugs in this category performed? Now, sales of semaglutide, which is the blockbuster GLP-1 drug, only the oral version is sold in India, which is branded as Rybelsus and sold by Novo Nordisk. It saw sales worth 56 crores in 2022 grow to over 200 crores by August 2023 and it went up to around 400 crores by August of 2024. Now, other molecules haven't been able to create the same magic as semaglutide. For example, dulaglutide, sold by the likes of Cipla and Lupin, the second largest drug after semaglutide in the Indian weight loss market, which saw maximum sales of 72 crores in the past 5 years and a 1% 5-year CAGR decline in sales. Or liraglutide, which is sold by the likes of Novo Nordisk and Glenmark, saw an 8% decline in sales on a 5-year CAGR basis, with a sharp 45% decline in sales in 2023. While Orlistat, which is sold by at least 20 pharma companies in the Indian market, saw maximum sales of around 64 crores in the past 5 years, which was around a 7% growth on a 5-year CAGR basis. Lastly, a few trends to watch out for. An incremental rise in semaglutide sales as physicians begin prescribing the drug for other conditions such as lowering risk of cardiovascular events, stroke, PCOS, amongst others. Sales are also expected to burgeon once the more popular injectable form is introduced in the Indian market. And the introduction of Eli Lilly's weight loss drugs, which is tirzepatide or Zepbound, which is giving stiff competition to Novo Nordisk's drugs globally. From an Indian company perspective, watch for the opportunity for the larger Indian companies to sign a licensing or marketing agreement with any of these global majors for the Indian market and also introduce their own generic version in the Indian market.
A smartphone, lipstick, and even a mixer grinder. You can get pretty much anything delivered to your home in 10 minutes thanks to quick commerce apps. In the third part of CNBC TV 18's series, Think It, Buy It, CNBC TV 18's Shilpa Ranipeta reports that the lines between quick commerce and e-commerce are blurring, but it's unlikely to be a zero-sum game.
When the iPhone 16 went on sale in India on September 17th, some fans chose to stand in line for hours. Others got it delivered in 10 minutes. Just a year earlier, this wouldn't have been possible, and customers who chose to order the phone on an Amazon or a Flipkart would have to wait at least 24 hours for delivery. Quick commerce platforms are not about ordering just groceries anymore, and traditional online stores and platforms are also feeling the heat.
Somewhere e-commerce growth rates have converged as compared to what they were historically. The market was growing at more than 20%, 25%. Now the growth rates have converged towards 14, 15%. Now, two factors for this. One is e-commerce in terms of penetration is usually penetrated. So there's not ample opportunity to penetrate from here on. So if you look at user growth, it will probably be in the range of 8 to 10%.
E-commerce companies are firing back by trying to deliver faster. But currently they offer at best same-day delivery for select products in select cities. For now, experts say e-commerce platforms will continue to hold their own because they deliver to nearly every pin code in India, have a much wider product assortment, and have the logistics in place to handle big-sized goods like refrigerators and washing machines. Their scale also allows them to offer higher discounts.
We are serving across 130 cities, so it is a service for across the length and breadth of the country, and we believe that the offering that we bring should be across India, across categories, and it should not be limited to just certain pockets of customers.
Today, all the categories we're launching are coming, data-driven, what customers expect on the platform, like smartphones, right? Or, for example, high-value electronics, or, for example, long-tail fashion, right? Or furniture, categories like that. So these high consideration, high stakes, high value purchases, that I think will have less product market fit, and we see that in the data. So that obviously is a little bit of a harder line, but in general, consumers are expanding our expectations every day.
But e-commerce platforms are not waiting around for quick commerce players to catch up in these areas. Many are testing a quick commerce offering of their own or have started looking at ways to deliver faster. Flipkart, for instance, is running a quick commerce pilot with minutes, while Myntra is testing a 4-hour delivery service. Amazon is getting its ducks in a row and has already ramped up its warehousing capacity to 43 million cubic feet across 15 states. Nykaa, meanwhile, has expanded same and next day deliveries to 110 cities and now operates 44 warehouses.
If you look into the next 2 years, we will see very intense competition. The line between e-commerce players and quick commerce will sort of fade. Everybody will offer at the very least almost 80-90% of SKUs, not only the same day, but probably within the hour of your placing an order. And some goods will be delivered even in minutes. So 2 or 3 years, you will see each of these players are very well funded. I don't think they're running out of money.
The stare down has begun, and while some say a shakeout is quite possible, others believe it's unlikely that one will eat the other up. So we may soon see a scenario where both will coexist. Impulse buying will move to quick commerce and planned purchases will stay on e-commerce. But e-commerce players will have to ramp up their service game to keep the impatient consumer happy. In Mumbai, Shilpa Ranipeta.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC TV 18.